Okay, let's just dive right into this, shall we? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely tear down one of the most intense pieces of narrative architecture we've seen in a long time. We're zeroing in on that climactic scene from episode 15, Separated by Ice. And specifically, we're deconstructing how the pacing and the stakes just relentlessly skyrocket. In just a handful of perfectly crafted lines, the source material traps the protagonist, and us, honestly, in an absolute masterclass of escalating peril. We're going to break down exactly how that tension is built, literally, from the very first frame.
Right off the bat, the script grounds all this high-concept sci-fi action in raw human emotion. Ethan mouths a simple, unspoken promise: "I'll find you." Now, the source text tells us he's mouthing these words to his mother and to Marcus. They're screaming his name, but, and this is key, the text explicitly notes he cannot hear them. This visual isolation totally anchors us before the real chaos even begins. Before the explosions or the wild escapes, we're given this deeply personal focal point. The stakes aren't just about survival anymore, they are about reunification.
Which brings us to Section 1, the emotional anchor. So the writer sets up this initial, completely harrowing situation where Ethan is physically and acoustically cut off from his family. I mean, they are right there, totally visible through a barrier, but completely out of reach. Actually, scratch that. It's not just a physical trap, it is a psychological one. The proximity makes the separation so much more agonizing to witness. It sets this intense baseline of emotional stress right out of the gate. Looking at the exact stage directions, we get this devastating contrast. Ethan looks down at his notebook, looks up at his mother, and smiles reassuringly, despite the sheer terror in his eyes. He's standing behind this thick, translucent ice wall. And that specific detail, the translucent ice, allows him to clearly see the horror on his family's faces, yet he makes the choice to project a false calm just to protect them. It's this profound moment of characterization that gives the scene its immense emotional weight, and it happens just seconds before the literal floor drops out from under him.
Moving right along to Section 2, the elemental shift. Boom! We transition from that frozen, static, emotional beat directly into sudden physical peril. The environment itself literally becomes the primary antagonist. It completely upends the quiet, tragic separation we were just looking at, replacing it with immediate, explosive danger. The script brutally pits these two environments against each other. We go from the cold silence of a thick, translucent ice wall straight into the fiery abyss of a magma shaft as the ground beneath Ethan begins to violently tilt. The narrative uses this extreme juxtaposition, freezing ice to liquid fire, to shock the system. It's a violent reality check that shatters the emotional goodbye, forcing pure survival instinct to just grab the wheel.
This sequence maps out an escalation ladder that is moving at absolute breakneck speed. The script multiplies the stakes at every single turning point, trapping you right there in the narrative. First, the floor gives way. Immediately, Ethan jumps into the pod. Then, a hypervelocity climb through the Earth's crust, leading directly into a sudden ocean burst. There's absolutely zero room to breathe between these moments. It's an escalation ladder where every single rung is just way more dangerous than the last.
The detail provided in the source is everything here. Look at Ethan's incredibly claustrophobic journey once he makes that jump in the nick of time. He's in the single remaining thermal pod, meaning, yeah, there is no backup plan. The script highlights hypervelocity speeds and pinning G-forces that lock him helplessly to his seat. To put that into perspective, even highly trained fighter pilots can start to black out around 9 Gs. And Ethan, he is far beyond a casual joyride here. On top of that, he's dealing with exponentially rising temperatures. Sure, he escaped the magma shaft, but he's essentially trapped inside a bullet rocketing upward through a burning volcanic tube. His sanctuary is actively harming him.
And that leads us to Section 3, technological failure.
So here is the crucial point. This supposed safety of the escape pod rapidly becomes a brand new death trap. Just as Ethan, and the audience, thinks he's outrun the immediate physical threat of the magma, the very machinery saving his life starts to break down. The escalation doesn't stop, it just mutates, and then we get the terrifying audio warning delivered by the computer regarding the pod's hull integrity: 40%. As the temperatures rise exponentially, the tech fails. This single stark data point serves as an incredibly intense focal point for the rising dread. It quantifies the danger for us. It's not just getting a little hot inside, it's a measurable, completely unavoidable countdown to total structural collapse.
Finally, we hit Section 4, Anatomy of a Cliffhanger. This brings us into the final moments of the scene, where the source material delivers its ultimate unresolved tension through this insane series of cascading disasters. The story isn't content with just one life-threatening issue, right? It stacks them, completely overwhelming the protagonist and our senses. Just look at how Ethan's safety evaporates. Step 1, the computer warns that the thermal shields are failing. Step 2, the pod miraculously survives the volcanic tube, only to violently burst out of an underwater volcanic vent. And Step 3, water begins leaking through the seams, rapidly filling the tiny capsule. He goes from burning up to drowning in a matter of seconds. Every time a problem is solved by the environment changing, a more claustrophobic, lethal problem takes its place.
Which brings us to a brilliant, absolute shock to the senses. We make this claustrophobic leap from the intense, blinding heat of the burning volcanic tube straight into the freezing, pitch-black depths of the ocean. An environment where, by the way, the water pressure alone is easily enough to crush standard military submarines. The narrative entirely strips away Ethan's vision and plunges him into the dark, cold unknown. It's an incredibly disorienting transition that maximizes the feeling of helplessness, arriving precisely as the tiny capsule starts taking on water.
So we are left right here, at the ultimate turning point. With fire behind him and freezing water closing in, what sacrifice comes next? The mechanics of this high-stakes storytelling rely entirely on never letting the tension plateau. By analyzing this source, we clearly see how layering emotional isolation, elemental extremes, and technological failure creates an inescapable grip on the audience. Ethan survived the translucent ice, and he survived the magma shaft, but as the water fills that capsule in the pitch-black ocean, we are left completely breathless. Think about how this escalation ladder operates next time you find yourself literally on the edge of your seat. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and always keep questioning the mechanics behind the story.